Ladies and gentlemen, a lot of people believe that the key year for Elvis was 1957. His first movies were very hot. He had his biggest hits continue to chart. And this is the year, especially in Canada, where he toured, and that's the only international concerts he ever did because Colonel Tom Parker, for reasons seen or unseen, didn't want him to tour in England or France or any place else. Now, the information on Elvis's tour of Canada, which, not say a tour, but some dates in Ottawa, Toronto, and Vancouver that were split during the year, some spring, some in the summers, come from the official blog of Graceland at graceland.com blog. Now, this blog comes from June 8, 2016, and talks about why young Elvis really chose Canada to expand his reach, because the media centers at the time were big, were Toronto, Ottawa, and Vancouver. He was to go to Montreal, but the Catholic capital of Canada didn't want no hip shaking in their city because the Catholic clergy and hierarchy thought he was a danger. Now, he made his first and last Canadian appearances again in the spring and summer of 57. Now, at the time, he had released his first album and film in 56 and had just purchased Graceland. Now, Elvis' first Canadian performances were at the icon of entertainment, Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto at 6 and 8 p.m. on April 2nd. Elvis wore his stunning, sparkling gold suit for the show, and this was the last time he wore the full suit, of course, for the famous album cover. For future performances, Elvis would only wear pieces from the suit, such as just a jacket, belt, and shoes, and in some shows, just a jacket, of course, with pants and accoutrements. At this performance, Elvis accompanied himself on piano for Blueberry Hill, a hit made popular by one of his favorite singers, Fats Domino. He also owned several of Fats' albums, so it was a good link. He performed again in Canada the next day on April 3rd at 4:30 p.m. and 8 p.m., 4 concerts in less than 24 hours at the Ottawa Auditorium in Ottawa. Elvis wore the gold jacket and shoes, but not the gold tie and pants. Now, at this point, Elvis' career was in full swing, but he was still a bit of a controversial figure. Parents and religious officials were concerned about their kids listening to rock and roll and the potentially dangerous influence Elvis had on his fans. A local girls' school in Notre Dame convent forbade its students to attend the event and suspended 8 of its students who ignored a rule. Who ratted them out? That's the question. Elvis was also booked to perform in Montreal too, but that show was cancelled due to civic concern and pressure from local Catholic officials. Ironically, in my dad's hometown parish of Lorne, New Brunswick, they were motivating people to go to church. If you went to church, you could see the Elvis movie that was being shown on certain evenings on the side of the Catholic Church at the St. Maria Goretti in Lorne. Now, Elvis' next Canadian concert was at the Empire Stadium in Vancouver on August 31st, 1957. The 26,000 fans in attendance went wild for the king of rock and roll. Then the stage was set up on an empty football field, but fans wanted to be closer. Thousands bypassed security to find a place in front of the stage on the field, and the show had to be stopped twice for safety concerns. Elvis's manager, Colonel Tom Parker, suggested to Elvis that he tone down his show, but being a rock and roll rebel, Elvis didn't listen to him. He did shorten the set, though, and for safety reasons, he fooled the audience. He gave his gold jacket to a crew member to wear while getting into a car, so fans would think it was Elvis's leaving. There was no indication he ever got the jacket back. The fans followed the man in the gold jacket, and Elvis was allowed to calmly leave the stadium unharmed. Now, ironically, across Canada, rock and roll wasn't a big problem until Elvis arrived, because many parts of Canada were multicultural and there was a big influence by the UK rock and roll. But, of course, Elvis's gyrating hips really caused a problem, because you're asking the kids not to act out emotionally, and Elvis was nothing but emotion. Now, on the Graceland site, there's talk about the various events that are held to celebrate Canada's link to Graceland. There's various Elvis festivals, including in Penticton and Collingwood, that Graceland has featured in its coverage. And of course, in New Brunswick, the ETA is strong. A lot of Elvis tribute artists. The Most important, of course, is our good friend of the channel, Mike Bravener, the folk and pop musician. Mike, ironically, got into some trouble with his hometown church in New Brunswick, where the parishioners, or the head of the parishioners, tried to do, allegedly, according to CBC, an exorcism on him. To stop the evil Elvis for having an influence on the church. I can tell you, you don't need an exorcism with Elvis. If anything, you need an exorcism on the way some churches go on, because it doesn't fit their normal procedure. Mike Bravener has toured throughout southern New Brunswick with his Elvis show, and he's performed internationally at competitions. Very, very good performer, and gives a great tribute to Elvis in every shape or form, like all the Elvis tribute artists in the Maritimes in Canada. So if you want to find out more about the Canadian tour, I did a previous podcast on the Canadian Tribute album, which features his covers of various Canadian artists he loved, songwriters, and also some details of the 57 tour, including the press conference he gave in Vancouver in the late summer of 57. So as we like to say in Northern Brunswick, Elvis is everywhere. If you like what we're doing here, give us a like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget, you can't stop rock and roll, and you can't stop Elvis. Thanks for listening. Bye.